They were young, vibrant women, filled with dreams of love, family, and a future that seemed so full of promise. Lenia, Marquita, Judy, each believed they had found the love of their lives. Each believed that their forever was within reach. But behind the promises of love and devotion, shadows were lurking. Shadows that would soon turn their dreams into a nightmare. What happens when love turns to rage? When the person you trust most becomes the one you fear. In this chilling story, three women are betrayed in the most horrific way imaginable. Betrayed by the men who promised to cherish them, protect them, love them forever. Flames of jealousy, rage, and obsession engulf their lives, leaving nothing but devastation in their wake. These are the stories of love that turn deadly, promises that turn to ashes, and women whose courage and fight still burn brightly. This is the flames of betrayal. Prepare yourself for a story that reveals how quickly love can turn to darkness, and how sometimes the most dangerous place of all is the one you call home. Don't miss this journey into the dark side of love. Make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss an episode of True Crime Series. Hit that like button and stay with us as we uncover the truths that are too terrifying to ignore. Lenia Gardner, known by her loved ones as Viv, was the kind of person everyone wanted to be around. Born and raised in the heart of South Chicago, Lenia's optimism, her ability to see the good in everything, and her laughter that could brighten even the darkest day, made her a beacon of light for those who knew her. She was the life of every party, the one who could always be counted on for a smile, for a shoulder to cry on, or to cheer you up after a bad day. Lenia had friends everywhere. Her warmth, her open heart, and her kindness made her someone people gravitated towards. Lenia's life wasn't without its challenges, of course. The neighborhood she grew up in was far from easy, and there were days when the struggles of life weighed heavily on her shoulders. But she always faced them head-on, with her characteristic resilience. She worked long hours to support herself, but she always found time for her friends, for the things she loved. She wanted what many people want: a home of her own, a family, a future filled with love. But all of that changed the day she met Henry Taylor. At first, Henry seemed like everything she had ever dreamed of. He was charming, had an easy smile, and a goofy sense of humor that made Lenia laugh. He swept her off her feet with his playful banter and his ability to make her forget, if only for a little while, the weight of the world on her shoulders. Henry was 35, a few years older than Lenia, and he had a past that was complicated. He had a criminal history, something that many would have seen as a red flag. But Lenia was always one to give people the benefit of the doubt. She believed in second chances, in seeing the good in people. Henry told her that his past was behind him, that he wanted to build a future, and Lenia believed him. She saw the playful side of Henry, the side that made her laugh until her stomach hurt. She believed that love could change things, that it could heal old wounds. Their relationship began casually, just two people enjoying each other's company. But as time went on, it became something deeper. Lenia fell for Henry, and he seemed to fall for her too. They spent more and more time together, and eventually, they made a spontaneous decision that would forever change their lives. They flew to Las Vegas, where they decided to get married in a whirlwind ceremony. Their wedding day was filled with smiles, laughter, and promises. As Lenia held Henry's hands in her own, she vowed to stand by his side, to be his rock, to help him grow. Her vows were filled with love and hope, her eyes glistening with tears as she promised herself to him. "I will walk hand in hand with you," she said, "but I will always give you space to grow." It was the kind of promise that spoke of real love, of wanting the best for someone else, of believing in them, of believing in the future. But behind the smiles and the laughter, behind the happy photos shared on social media, there were cracks in their relationship. Cracks that Lenia either didn't see or chose to ignore. When they returned to Chicago and began their married life together, it didn't take long for those cracks to become impossible to ignore. Henry had a temper, a quick, explosive anger that would surface over the smallest things. In moments of calm, he could be charming and funny, the man Lenia fell in love with. But in the blink of an eye, he could become a different person entirely. He was controlling, possessive, and prone to fits of jealousy. He began to lash out at Lenia, berating her for small things, making her feel as though she could never do anything right. Sometimes, their arguments were caught on video, moments Lenia shared with friends on Facebook Live. In one such video, Lenia sits at their dining table, smiling nervously as Henry berates her for making a meal he didn't think was good enough. "What do I look like to you?" he demands, his voice filled with venom. "Do I look like some lowlife who deserves trash food? You think I'm not worth more than this?" Lenia tries to laugh it off, tries to calm him down, but his anger only grows. He tells her she's lucky, he even puts up with her, that she should be grateful for everything he's done for her. Lenia remains quiet, her eyes cast down, her fingers trembling as she tries to eat her dinner. Lenia tried to keep the peace. She tried to avoid triggering Henry's temper, tried to do everything she could to make him happy. But nothing was ever enough. Henry's anger wasn't just about words. It was about control. He wanted to control every aspect of Lenia's life. And when words didn't work, he turned to threats. The months after their wedding were marked by a growing sense of fear for Lenia. She began to feel as though she was walking on eggshells. Any wrong word, any slight misstep, and Henry would explode. He would threaten to hurt her, to make her regret ever crossing him. He told her that she belonged to him, that no one else would ever want her, that if she ever tried to leave, he would make sure she paid for it. Lenia's friends began to worry about her. She became more withdrawn, her bright smile fading, her laughter becoming less frequent. She stopped coming to social gatherings, stopped answering calls. When she did speak to her friends, she brushed off their concerns, insisting that everything was fine, that Henry was just going through a tough time. She believed that things would get better, that the man she loved was still there, underneath all the anger. She believed that if she just loved him enough, he would change, but things didn't get better. Instead, they got worse. On the night of April 16, 2021, everything came to a head. It was late, well past midnight, and another argument broke out. The exact details of what sparked the argument are unclear, but what is known is that Henry's rage was unlike anything Lenia had ever seen before. He grabbed a can of lighter fluid, and in his uncontrollable fury, he poured it over Lenia. Before Lenia could react, Henry set her on fire. In that moment, everything changed. Flames consumed her body, her skin blistering and burning as she screamed in agony. The pain was beyond anything she could have imagined, the fire searing her flesh, her clothes, her hair. Desperate to save herself, Lenia ripped off her burning clothes and ran to the bathroom, trying to douse the flames in the shower. But the damage was already done. Her body was covered in second and third-degree burns. Lenia, her body burned and in excruciating pain, ran out of her home and into the streets. She ran for 2 blocks, her screams echoing through the empty night, until she reached a firehouse on 105th and Hest Avenue. The firefighters heard her cries and rushed to her aid. What they found was devastating. Lenia was burned over more than 70% of her body. Her skin was blistered, her hair fused to her flesh, and the pain she was enduring was beyond comprehension. They did everything they could, rushing her to the hospital where doctors worked to save her. She underwent surgery, her body fighting to stay alive. For more than a month, Lenia lay in the hospital, her body covered in burns, her life hanging by a thread. But despite the best efforts of the doctors and nurses who cared for her, Lenia's injuries were too severe. On May 21, 2021, after more than a month of unimaginable suffering, Lenia Gardner passed away. She was surrounded by medical staff who had done everything they could, but her body could no longer fight. It was a tragic, senseless death, the end of a life that had once been so full of joy, laughter, and promise. Henry Taylor, the man who had promised to love and protect Lenia, turned himself in after the attack. He confessed to what he had done, showing no remorse for the pain he had caused. He claimed that he wasn't even that close to Lenia, that she didn't mean that much to him. Cold words that showed the true darkness inside of him. Henry now faces life in prison without the possibility of parole, a small measure of justice for the life he stole. But no punishment will ever be enough to bring Lenia back, to heal the pain of her loss. Our second story takes us back to Chicago, a city filled with vibrant culture, bustling streets, and people who are fighting every day to make a better life for themselves. One of those people was Marquita Redmond, a mother of two who lived in a small apartment on 55th and Prairie. Marquita was a fighter, someone who worked hard to provide for her children, who wanted nothing more than to give them a safe, loving home. She was determined to overcome the challenges that life had thrown her way, and she was doing everything she could to make a better future for herself and her children. But Marquita's life was far from easy. She was in a relationship that was toxic and dangerous, a relationship with a man who was controlling, abusive, and jealous. He was possessive, often accusing Marquita of things she hadn't done, his paranoia driving a wedge between them. Marquita tried to make it work, for the sake of her children, for the sake of the life she wanted to build. But there came a point where she knew she had to leave. On an ordinary evening, Marquita made the decision to end the relationship. It was a decision that took all of her strength and courage, a decision that was made not just for her, but for her children, who deserved to grow up in a home free from violence and fear. But her boyfriend wasn't ready to let her go. He wasn't ready to lose control over Marquita, and in a fit of rage, he did something that would change her life forever. He grabbed a gun and fired. The bullets hit Marquita 3 times, once in the shoulder, once grazing her neck, and once in the arm. The pain was indescribable, the force of the shots knocking her to the ground. But Marquita was a fighter. Even as her body was racked with pain, even as she lay bleeding on the floor, she knew she had to survive. She had to survive for her children, who were watching in terror as their mother fought for her life. Marquita was rushed to the hospital, where doctors worked tirelessly to save her life. They performed surgery to repair the damage done by the bullets, her body stitched together, her neck stapled shut. The fact that she survived was nothing short of a miracle, a testament to her strength, her determination, and her will to live. Marquita spent 9 days in the hospital, recovering from her injuries, her body healing, but her spirit scarred by the trauma of what she had endured. But Marquita's nightmare was far from over. Just 2 days after she was released from the hospital, her apartment caught fire. The fire was no accident. Surveillance footage showed a man breaking into the building and setting the fire deliberately. It was Marquita's ex-boyfriend, determined to finish what he had started. He wanted to make sure that Marquita, her children, and everything she had worked for would be destroyed. The fire consumed everything: Marquita's home, her belongings, her children's toys. It was all gone, turned to ash and rubble in a matter of minutes. But by some miracle, Marquita and her children were not inside. They had been staying with a family member, recovering from the trauma of the shooting. Though they lost everything they owned, they did not lose each other. Marquita had survived not once, but twice, escaping the violence and hatred of a man who had promised to love her. Marquita's story is one of survival, of enduring the unthinkable and coming out on the other side. But even after surviving the shooting and the fire, the threat still loomed. Her ex-boyfriend was out there, his name withheld, his face a constant reminder of the danger that still lingered. A no-contact order was put in place, but Marquita knew that a piece of paper could not truly protect her. She lived each day in fear, knowing that the man who had tried to take her life twice was still out there, still a threat. Our third and final story takes us to Ohio, where the life of Judy Malinowski was forever changed by a man she once loved. Judy was a bright, ambitious young woman, filled with dreams of a loving family and a peaceful home. Growing up, Judy was the kind of person who stood out. Her infectious smile, her kind heart, her drive to succeed. She was involved in school activities, a cheerleader, a pageant contestant, and even voted homecoming queen. She seemed destined for a bright future, one filled with promise and joy. But like so many others, Judy faced challenges that threatened to derail her dreams. She became a single mother at a young age, working tirelessly to provide for her 2 daughters. The struggle to make ends meet was relentless, but Judy faced it with strength. doing everything she could to give her children the life they deserved. And then, just as things seemed to be stabilizing, she received devastating news. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. The diagnosis was a blow, but Judy faced it with the same determination she had faced every other challenge in her life. She underwent treatment, surgery, chemotherapy, the grueling process that took its toll on her body and spirit. But she fought, and eventually, she beat the cancer. It seemed that Judy had overcome the impossible, that she had faced death and emerged victorious. But the cancer had left its mark. Judy was in pain, and she was prescribed opioids to help manage it. Like so many others, Judy fell into the grip of addiction. Judy struggled with her addiction, her life becoming a cycle of pain, pills, and regret. She knew she needed help, and she reached out, entering rehab in an effort to get her life back on track. It was during this vulnerable time that she met Michael Slager, a man who seemed to offer her the love and support she so desperately needed. He was kind, attentive, and caring. He made her believe that she could have the life she always wanted, that she could overcome her addiction and build. But Michael Slager was not the man he appeared to be. Beneath his kind exterior was a manipulator, an abuser, and an addict. He preyed on Judy's vulnerability, using her addiction as a way to control her. He provided her with drugs, keeping her dependent on him, isolating her from her family and friends. He was emotionally abusive, using intimidation and manipulation to keep Judy under his control. The relationship quickly became toxic, but Judy, like so many victims of abuse, felt trapped. She had fought so hard to get her life back on track, and now she was caught in a cycle of abuse and addiction that seemed impossible to escape. But nothing Michael did in the course of their toxic relationship could compare to what he did on August 2nd, 2015. The couple was at a Speedway gas station, arguing. It was one of many arguments they had had, moments of anger that seemed to come out of nowhere, that escalated far beyond what they should have. In a moment of frustration, Judy threw her soda at Michael. It was an impulsive act, something done in the heat of the moment. But it was enough to push Michael over the edge. Enraged, Michael grabbed a can of gasoline, dousing Judy with it before taking out a lighter. In an instant, he set her on fire, engulfing her in flames. The fire consumed her, the flames spreading over her body, burning her skin, her clothes, her hair. The pain was indescribable. People nearby rushed to help, using whatever they could find to put out the flames. But by the time the fire was extinguished, the damage was done. Judy was burned over 80% of her body. She was rushed to the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center, where she was placed in a medically induced coma. Her body was burned beyond recognition, her life hanging by a thread. Doctors worked tirelessly to save her, but her prognosis was bleak. The burns covered so much of her body, and they were so deep, that her chances of survival were almost non-existent. But Judy fought. She held on, her body struggling to heal from the unimaginable damage. She endured surgeries, skin grafts, and the excruciating pain that came with her injuries. She stayed alive, her determination to see her daughters again, pushing her through the darkest moments. Despite her strength, despite her determination, the damage was too great. Judy passed away after months of suffering, her body finally giving out. It was a tragic, senseless death, the end of a life that had once been so full of promise and hope. Michael Slager, the man who had once promised to love her, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He showed no remorse, no understanding of the pain and suffering he had caused. But Judy's story did not end with her death. Her courage, her fight for justice, inspired change. Her family fought tirelessly to ensure that what happened to Judy would not happen to anyone else. They worked to pass Judy's Law in Ohio, a law that adds years to the sentences of those who disfigure their victims using accelerants like gasoline. It was a small step towards justice, a small measure of hope in the face of unimaginable loss. Lenia Gardner, Marquita Redmond, and Judy Malinowski, three women whose lives were forever changed by the men they loved. Three women who faced unimaginable horror, who fought against the darkness, and who remind us of the importance of recognizing the signs of abuse before it's too late. Their stories are heartbreaking, but they are also a testament to resilience, to the strength of the human spirit, and to the courage it takes to survive. If you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship, please remember, you are not alone. There is help. There are people who will stand by you, who will help you find safety, who will help you find a way out. Thank you for joining us for this episode of True Crime Series. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next story. Stay safe. And remember, love should lift us up, not tear us down.